Hey guys, it's your favorite sisters with the Confessions of a Reluctant Caregiver podcast. On the show, you'll hear caregivers confessing the good, the bad, and the completely unexpected. You're guaranteed to relate, be inspired, leave with helpful tips and resources, and of course, laugh. Now, let's jump right in to today's guest confession. Why are you touching me? You know you're going to leave a bruise when you put
Well, you're not that sensitive. You're not breakable.
Well, I'm getting older. It's a little harder to
It's because again, we're just back in the studio together.
Together forever.
Nope. Moving on. Okay, we got a guest today.
All right, that's fine. That's the way it's going to be.
I know.
Any stories from Connie today?
No, the last time we were on, I told you that, she had called me 11 times in 3 minutes. Actually, this morning while we were,
recording the podcast?
Yes, she was sending me messages. She was doing stuff on her phone that I don't even know how to do. She wrote something about a falling tree and then wrote a line through
She did a strike through.
Yeah.
I don't even know how to do that.
No.
Our 70-year-old mother knows how to do a strike through.
She shouldn't have an iPhone.
No.
That probably is going to cost extra.
Probably.
Yeah.
You know what? But we're here.
Moving on.
We're here because guess who we have today?
When I say it, you're going to laugh because he said I could say it with a Southern accent.
No, we have a boy.
Oh, yeah, it's a boy.
Yeah. I love our male caregivers because they have such a different perspective than the girly girls.
Yes.
But everybody is so great. But I really am excited. We told our guests that we weren't sure that we were cool enough to actually for him to be on the podcast with us because he's really cool.
And you guys will understand why when I read a little bit of his bio. Today, I'm going to say it Southern. Today's guest is Alfredo Botello. How to do?
It's Alfredo Botello.
Okay, Alfredo. I will be nice.
All right.
Alfredo Botello. And he is a man who wears many hats. Get ready, guys. He is a novelist. He is a screenwriter. He is a bar owner. My favorite. He is a corgi dad to George and Dottie. We're all dog people.
I love that. We're all dog people.
Now, Alfredo has worked on projects ranging from indie films to big studio hits, but he has written many books, but he has written a book now that has caught our attention. Get ready, guys. It's called Spin Cycle, Notes from a Reluctant Caregiver.
God, he's meant to our brother. No, he was meant to be our brother.
He is. He says, spoiler alert, it hits hard and it's real for anyone who's been in the caregiving trenches. Okay, here's the story. Behind screenplays and books is a story that many of us can relate to. It is messy, complicated, and deeply human. He is speaking my language. Alfredo became a caregiver for his mom, Lisa, after his stepfather, Jim, passed away. And Alfredo admits he didn't fully recognize at first the illness that his mom really what she was going through.
Yeah.
He describes moments of get ready again, frustration, confusion, and snippiness. Well, that is my life.
Well, snippiness
all the time.
I feel like I'm party of
all
life.
too common in caregiving, but rarely talked about. And that is what I like that he said. True honesty there. His mom's Alzheimer's journey became his own crash course in caregiving, a seat of the pants education he wasn't prepared for, and says he wished he'd written Spin Cycle years before. Alfredo, we are so happy to have you here.
We love you. Yeah.
I know.
Our honorary brother. I love that because he's reluctant and he's speaking my love.
I know. So, and then when he said he got snippy and he got impatient, that is my life.
Yeah.
I'm trying to do better. I'm trying to get grace. So thank you for being on. Thank you for writing your book about reluctant caregivers.
Oh, I love that.
Well, thanks so much for having me on. And yeah, the second I saw the title of your podcast, I knew I was going to bug you until you said yes.
Oh,
so,
yes.
I'm really happy to be on here. And I don't know, I kind of want to talk more about Connie and her kind of cryptic poetry about trees that you just talked. Wow, man. I think mom's got some hidden talents you might not be acknowledging.
Oh,
you would have to see the mini texts that I get. Actually, that could be my own book. Text from Connie. It's amazing.
I think just a coffee table book of screenshots and let people interpret and understand.
Take them.
And the greatest art is ambiguous anyway.
That makes me feel better. So yeah, that's how I make my millions.
I know, right? Well, it's totally true. If you could see our text group between Emily, our younger sister, and us, it is a combination of rants, updates, and images that really help to really get the person who is reading it to get the feel of how we're feeling.
Yeah.
It was really interpretive. So, but it's not about us.
Yes.
It's about you.
Exactly.
So we're going to start. We're going to start from the beginning.
Yes.
You were born but then you're going to kind of give us some background about your family and then bring us up to caregiving, like bring us up to speed. So tell us a little bit about yourself so that we kind of paint the picture.
Sure. So I was born in Madrid, Spain.
Cool.
Don't speak a word of Spanish. Well, enough to order a burrito if I have to under pressure. But my parents emigrated when I was just a baby. So dad and mom settled in Los Angeles. And that's where I grew up. And they divorced when I was around 6 or 7. Dad's Spanish, mom's German. So I ended up I speak German, which is not that useful in California. But I remember my dad saying at the time, well, a lot of bankers speak German. That's probably a good idea. So obviously I didn't go into banking. So anyways.
Not remotely.
Not remotely, yeah. So that was growing up in LA. And I remember after my parents divorced, my mom, Lisa, it was just an amazing single mom. So she just ate life. After the divorce, she took belly dancing lessons. She went to Toastmasters, not because she had a job as a public speaker. She just wanted to speak better just because she wanted to. I don't know why. She to the Sierra Club for hikes, which I think is sort of like the OkCupid.go or something of the 70s, where you would take hikes in the nature and hopefully to meet a guy or something.
I respect that.
And she put me through a private Catholic school. And I remember she had her daytime job as an administrator at IBM. And then there was a stretch there at night where she'd bring me along and I would stay in the little break room. And she was at a tennis club handing out towels to the incoming kind of pretty wealthy tennis player types. And she just, 1984 Olympics. So she just, for the fun of it, volunteered to be a interpreter. She spoke Spanish too. So she could speak German and Spanish, and she would just go volunteer just to experience stuff. So I put all that up, not just to sort of brag about my mom, which yes, I am, but so it was just her and I. She remarried to my stepdad, Jim, a great guy. They were married for 27 years. He was an awesome guy. He was a film noir buff. He liked to write poetry, haiku. He was a really interesting guy. And then, especially after he passed, that's when it really jumped out at me that this independent, kick-ass woman, something was so different about her. So a small example. So this is kind of almost a caricature of kind of an efficient little German lady. She's German. On her fridge, she always had a printed out calendar. And this document governed her life. So there's this haircut, the stylist appointment, the therapist appointment. I want to go to the bank on this and that day. I have a doctor's appointment. And this thing was rigorous and she kept to it and it was great. And then one day after Jim passed, I remember her looking at her own writing and all the scratch outs. There were a bunch of scratch outs, which I hadn't seen before, and liquid paper. And it was all kind of a mess. And she just looked at me and says, I can't get it together. And at that time I said, Mom, it's okay. I put my arm around her. I said, listen, it's a hard time. Why don't we just start over? We'll get a fresh piece of paper or something. I did none of that. What I really did, I said, what's wrong with you? So I wish in retrospect, I had been this kind, compassionate guy who just kind of sensed something was a little bit different. So this is all the kind of the guilt and the what ifs and the redos that run in my head constantly. And I was snippy and I was short and I was a little bit contemptuous in my tone even. And this would happen if my mom also called me from, it wasn't her that called me. It was the greeter from Walmart calling me from the parking lot because she was in tears. She couldn't find her car. So I raced up there to go get her, already irritated. I get there and the car is 50 feet away. And I'm like, Mom, it's right there. You couldn't find it. And then she just, she says, well, he couldn't find it either, meaning the Walmart guy. I'm like, Mom, he doesn't know your car. Why should he be able to find it? So right. These were these are just two examples of me sort of not being very patient and understanding with a woman who, I think what was going on, you guys, was that I didn't understand how the super independent, amazing woman, these weird changes, and she wasn't the same anymore. And I didn't like it. Yeah. And I wasn't handling well. And it was maybe a year or two before the diagnosis of likely onset Alzheimer's came, which did help me understand a little bit and sort of brought me a few more steps toward being compassionate. But that's how things kind of began. And so there was a period there where, as a caregiver, especially after Jim died, she was either living up here in the Bay Area with me and my girlfriend, and God bless my girlfriend. I mean, she allowed me to put the signs up on the doors. This is the bathroom. This is the garage. This is the office. So Mom, wouldn't get confused. Mm-hmm. And then there were times where I would just live with her in Southern California, where she's from. But and she wanted to, she wanted to live alone. But after trying Instacart, once she lost her driver's license and no longer could drive, she still wanted to do it. So she would call me and I would try to order Instacart food. I would try to arrange Lyfts and Ubers, but then she would get into a stranger's car instead of the right car.
Oh.
And that was rough. I remember once getting a call from the bank where that's exactly what happened. They're like, well, your mother has gotten into a stranger's car and now she's crying because she's saying we're not allowing her to leave. We're holding her there, which they were because they were waiting for me to come get her. So all of that put together led me to the decision to bring her up here in the Bay Area. So now now I'm more the care manager. She's in an assisted living place, which is great. I say that because we tried 3 before we found one that was a good fit. Because that's not always easy either. Mm-hmm. So I see her now 2-3 times a week. In fact, after this podcast, I'm going to be going to check in on her and we're going to go and get her decaf latte, and knowing her, probably she wants some apples and chocolate from Safeway. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of my story in a nutshell.
Okay. So I'm going to back you up a whole bunch.
That was the intro.
That was it. We're done. The podcast is
done. That's the short version.
I know.
Well,
and now we're about to get into the down and dirty. So
we're actually going to back up. I want to back up to Jim. So so Jim comes into your life and you're growing up. How old were you when your mom remarried Jim, or Jim came into your life?
I was 22, 23.
Okay. So you were an adult. And so it'd been you and your mom for quite some time then, I'd assume, at some level. And you said that because in our notes, Jim got sick. And so I'm assuming you're living life, right? And Jim and your mom get married and they start living life, right? And you're living your life. Cause you're doing again, your bio is like super impressive and you're living your life. And so Jim gets sick. And at what point, do you step in? Is it your mom that's primarily caring for him? What does the dynamics come to at that point? Because then at some point Jim passes, but Jim also, you talk about 2 failed suicide attempts by Jim and how that impacts your family and your mom. So can you back up a little bit there, and let's start there, because once he passes, that's really when you see, hey, I think something's not right. And I'm going to have to step in more into this mess that we call caregiving.
Absolutely. So in my mind, in the last few years before Jim passed, I had the narrative set in my head. Mm-hmm. Jim is sick. Mom is healthy. She's the caregiver. End of story. So he had many ailments. He had skin cancer. He went through a couple bouts of COVID. I know I'm missing 1 or 2 things, but the biggest issue was his kidneys were failing. Right. So he was in dialysis 4, then 5 times a week, and he couldn't stand it. It was just the quality of life was just down the tubes for him.
Yeah.
And he wanted to go. He was 89 and he was ready.
Yeah.
But he didn't qualify, I think, for the technical things all the boxes you need to check for a kind of assisted suicide or compassionate leaving, however, whatever the phrase of each state is on this topic.
Right.
So he instead did try suicide twice, pills and alcohol, but he didn't get it quite right. And both times, I remember I was there for the second time. I was staying with them, and I remember I heard, it's like 1 in the morning, I heard a thunk, a heavy thunk. And I went into the living room, and he was in his favorite chair, but he had fallen forward, hit his head, and he was sitting there in kind of a pool of blood around his head. And it was just a complete panic moment. Got him together, realized what had happened. He was taken to a psychiatric facility for a while. Anyways, at some point after these 2 attempts, and this is, you can imagine how traumatic this was for my mom, for anybody, but really this is, she's the one with him every day. So this was just an absolute mess. She was traumatized, didn't know what to do. And I remember at some point, a really compassionate doctor pulled me aside and kind of whispered, look, if he really wants to go, if he stops dialysis, he'll be gone in 2 weeks, 1 or 2 weeks. And he did. So I mentioned that to him. He stopped, and 10 days later, he passed. And that part was actually quite profound. And for me, anyways, it was a kind of moving and loving situation. So he hated hospitals. So he got to leave in the house. A hospice nurse came by, so he was comfortable for the first time in a year or 2 with, the meds and so on. And I was able to play. And this is something I learned, is how the primary things like taste and sound, this is whether we're talking about death or dementia or other things, that stuff stays after language goes away and so on. So I would play for him some of his old favorite 60s and 70s songs.
Yeah.
And I could tell he really liked it, even though he couldn't really communicate that well, or he wanted his back scratched. Like something as primal as just having your back scratched. That was the thing. And I remember, but when he could still talk a little bit, twice or three times he said to me, and I didn't quite get it, because he wasn't a man to kind of spill his emotional guts. He would say to me, so, meaning after he goes, so you will take care of mom, right? And I was like, oh, this is what a ridiculous question. I'm the only son. Of course I'm going to take care of mom. Like, why are you asking me this even? I thought it was just kind of a bizarre question.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The way he said it was kind of bizarre. And I realized now, looking back, I think he was hinting that, hey, there's more going on with mom that maybe I'm taking care of.
Right.
So the stuff that came out afterwards, like my mom feeling like, oh, my heart's racing, I'm going to call 911. I mean, she called 911 practically on speed dial. I mean, it was crazy. So she would always be rushed to the hospital. By the time she got there, there was no heartbeat anymore. There was no issue. She would knock on neighbors' doors, ask if she could spend the night. And maybe once or twice, if they were feeling open to it, they're like, oh, yeah, you can stay here for one night. But when she wanted to keep staying for 2 and 3 and 4 nights, then they would call me saying, hey, so the bottom line is the narrative flipped. I realized, no, they were both sick and both taking care of each other in their way.
Mm.
And it was a massive aha moment that Jim, who was cognitively sharp till the very last moment, was probably running a lot of interference and cutting off and basically talking my mom down as she was driving him to all the appointments, getting the food, making sure he made all the doctor's visits. And then, the old one-liner I had about them had changed, and they were both each other's caregivers. And now she had lost hers. So now it was time for me to step in.
Mm. Okay. This is a perfect place for a pause.
Yes.
Because then we'll transition. This is interesting. We'll be right back. Hey ladies, I need to interrupt for just a second to share about the Sisterhood membership. It's basically a sale every day, and the best part, it's free. Here's the details. We're partnering with our friends at Benefit Hub and other care partners to save you money. With over 200,000 participating companies across the U.S. and abroad, you'll find discounts at your favorite local stores, huge savings on vacations, amazing deals on home, auto, and supplemental insurances, and everything in between. Go to confessionsofareluctantcaregiver.com to sign up, and then definitely tell your friends about it. They can join too. Trust me, there's a discount for everyone. And don't forget, it's free. Okay, back to confessing. Do you love to listen to podcasts? So do we. And these sisters are excited to support our fellow sister in care, Nicole Will, host of Navigating the World with Your Aging Loved One. As former guests ourselves, we love how Nicole explores the world of aging and care. Beyond the informative interviews, Nicole's gathered helpful resources and practical tools that encourage and give hope to caregivers navigating the aging journey with their loved ones for a more meaningful and fulfilled life. You can find Nicole wherever you download your favorite podcast or go to her website, www.willgather.com.
All right, everybody, we are here with Alfredo Botello, and we just talked about when his stepfather passed away. Mm-hmm. And so first question would be your thought after he passes away, because you didn't really recognize, Jim has asked you, okay, you'll take care of your mother. But when this happens, did you think mom's going to be fine and she's going to
keep living
fine. She's going to be, she's going to live. And she's going to progress with her life. She's still driving. Is that kind of where you're going to go back to your career and everything's going to be, she's just going to age in place? Is that kind of where your mind was, Alfredo? Or
Absolutely. I thought, okay, maybe it was sort of like after she divorced my dad. I mean, maybe now at 80 years old, she wouldn't go into belly dancing lessons and Sierra Club hikes.
Okay, fine. All right, fine. We get it.
Look, maybe she loves word search puzzles. She loves to watch old Carol Burnett episodes. Like she'll find that. It'll be great. She's in an assisted living. I'm sorry. She was still alone in her condo, but with a group of retirees. Like there's clubs, there's things. She loves to be active. She had talked about doing volunteer work at a hospital. That was one of her things. So I was like, great. Now in my mind, actually, she might be more free because now she didn't have to take care of Jim.
Yeah.
And she was in physically great shape. So I kind of thought this would be possibly like a new chapter, that it wasn't all doom and gloom. And on my sort of own little slightly selfish end, I was like, well, and this is great too, because I have two grown sons. They're out. So I did that part of my life. I do have, I've got one herniated disc in my back, but I can still travel. I can still get on an airplane. Like now I get to have my fun. I put in my share, and I don't have to, I'm done. Mom's going to be fine for years. And then so suddenly I find that, wait a minute, hang on. That's not what's going on. And just on the selfish side, you might have to postpone some of those trips for a bit because you have a new baby to take care of. Only she's not chubby and rosy cheeked and burbling. She has opinions, and some of them you don't like, and she can be a little tough. And but I have another kid that no one told me about, and no one gave me a heads up that this was going to happen.
That's interesting, because did you and your mom ever have conversations about her wishes? Like, as she got older, would she want to be independent? Would she want to move in with you? Would she want to do assisted living? I mean, I've told my husband, when we took our mom, it was the first time we'd ever been in any type of seen like assisted living or senior living communities, or where you can age through their continuum. And I told my husband, who's a touch older than me, I was like, dude, the moment you turn 55, man, we're moving in, 3 hots and a cot. I'm the prettiest thing there. Okay. Because I'm young. And so I'm feeling good about myself. Did you all have these conversations, especially after Jim died, about what she wanted, so that you all knew this is our plan?
My mom was not ready to have those conversations.
Even at 80?
In the years, yes, she was not ready to have that. She was not in their mindset to have those. I tried to bring it up a couple times. I tried to bring it up earlier when they were both still together, and she was just not ready to think in those terms. And so, no, all that stuff did end up being sort of seeded. I remember, this is so kind of ridiculous, but this is a kind of a window into, I'm sure maybe other caregivers have had something similar. So she had a therapist who she liked. And after Jim passed, she asked me to come and join her for a few of the sessions. And there was one point after the diagnosis of Alzheimer's where she had kind of this very lucid moment where she was like, I think it's, because I had brought it up a couple of times, I think it is time for assisted living. I'm like, oh, great, she's ready. So I actually in my Virgo way, I wrote up a little contract. So anyway, not even a contract, just a paragraph saying, I, Lisa Carter, am ready to, because I wanted this therapist to kind of see it. We're going to sign it in her presence, and then we'll be done with the matter. This is great. Went to the session. Mom was ready. I had the paper in hand saying, I, Lisa Carter, I'm going to do this. I'm going to move into assisted living. She signed it. Everything was great. I don't know, 2-3 months later, when staying by herself was just not working out, it was like, it was time, but it's okay because I had the contract. So I show Mom, we tour a few places, and she is just not having it. She just has this look on her face like, I can't, get me out of here as soon as possible. And one of her little digs to me was, she would never call it a home. She was like, I don't want to go to the hotel. I don't like the hotel. And I think she was just being really clever. I don't think it was a mistake on her part. I think, like, that's the kind of like family baggage. We know how to push each other's buttons. But the bottom line was, I had the contract. So I pulled out the piece of paper. I showed it to her. She read it. She goes, yeah, I changed my mind. That was it. It's like, it was null and void. So it was like, yes, of course she has opinions. And I thought I had sort of made everything foolproof with this thing. But that's kind of one of the lessons I felt I continually am learning, that just when you think you've solved a problem in caregiving, like my mom's meds, right? You had the boxes with the Monday through Sunday.
That's right.
Like, I had the boxes, and then I had I was so proud of myself. I made this amazing checklist sheet where breakfast, lunch, dinner, bedtime, all she had to do was check off a box, right? And next to it would be there's the metoprolol or the diltiazem. And
I'm so sorry.
Because she could do it. What's that?
I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, do you know where this is going? I don't know if you know.
Right off the bat. Go ahead. I love
Keep
these.
going. This is great.
I was so happy. And she got to feel independent. It was all great. And then there came a time where I thought, okay, problem solved. And then there came a time where she would check the box and go, wait, to me, asking me, did I take the medicine? And I go, well, you must have, because you checked the box, and you only check the box after you take the medicine. But that's me assuming she could remember. I mean, when you think about it, between taking the pill, picking up the pen, checking the right box, putting the pill, there's a million steps there that if you break it down second by second, it's a lot more than just what it seems. But this is the thing I've learned, like just when I think something is settled, whether it's assisted living, the meds, everything is continually changing. So one thing that's me as a person, I like a certain amount of stability, predictability. That's just who I am. Man, once you're a caregiver to someone, you got to throw that out the window. You might have your plan A, and that's great, but you better have plan B and C. And okay, and even if you don't have plan B and C, you better get ready to come up with them, because there's nothing's ever fixed. And the med thing had to change, and we had to go to a different system. But you've got to. It's like if you're not ready to roll with that, you're just going to be pissed off, frustrated, resentful, all that stuff. So that's one of the biggest things I've had to learn, is to pivot and to use the old sports metaphor, take what the defense gives you kind of thing. That's what I've learned.
That is his real, you got to be able to roll with it or make changes, or otherwise you're just going to be pissed off, because that is so true. When you talked about your mom's med box, I'm thinking about how many. We went through a spiral notebook. We went through the huge pill box. I mean, we went through so many steps, and each time they failed, I got to that same point. I was like, but I did this. And so what you're saying, though, being open to the fact that it's just going to have to keep changing. It's never perfected. That is, you are on spot there. So I think for everybody.
We can totally relate to that.
I know, we relate.
So you're supporting your mom. And at this point, is she living with you? You all are splitting locations? Is she coming to your house sometimes? Because you mentioned that you went and sometimes you'd be in Southern California with her. So what's the living situation as this continues to evolve?
It's split. And in my mind, at least in the back of my mind, I mean, she wanted her independence still, of course. And she wanted to be able to stay there at her place. She had a condo in Southern California. I'm up here. I'm living in a house with my girlfriend. And this was right in the wake of Jim's death. So I thought, well, this is kind of temporary. I mean, she's in a tough spot emotionally. She just can't be alone. So, but I realized like a 1 or 2 week trip wasn't going to do it. Like she was not ready. So for the first, I want to say at least 6 months, it was a mix of the two. So I would constantly fly down there. And it was during COVID. It was amazing. I was like 1 of 3 people on the airplane. So it was great. I never had to wait. Flew down there. It was a breeze, and I would stay there until it was time to bring her back up. And then she would fly up with me, and we'd stay here for a while until it was time to get her back down there. But it was all with this in my mind. It was all sort of like, we're just getting over the hump here until she can really settle back in. And like I say, go back to that being the person she was. So I was kind of mixing up, conflating the dementia with the grief of losing your partner of 27 years. Yeah. And I was like, well, of course we can understand that. I would be a mess. I don't know how I would be.
Yeah.
So, but it just gradually became more and more clear that her living alone, as these things started happening, losing the driver's license, being confused about the Lyfts and Ubers, the food situation, going to the neighbors, that was not sustainable. It wasn't going to work. So I finally realized.
So I guess my question is, I forgot my question.
Oh, I've got one.
Okay,
so
go.
Hold your thought. I'll come back to you. It just happens at your age. But you're welcome for that. Again, considerably older. And so you're welcome for that.
It's because I looked at you.
I know. That's what happened because you were thinking. Okay, so now you almost made me forget mine. How is this impacting? So you've been dating this lady.
That was my question.
I'm so glad. You've been dating this lady.
Yeah.
And so you're
you still have a job? I mean, are you able to work, or is this full?
Hey, I'd like to have my mom come stay with us. That's awesome. Because I know what my husband thought when my mom stayed for a couple of days. That went over like a fart in church. So it was not great.
Look, so my girlfriend Simone is a saint.
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
and
love you,
Simone. Part of it is just her natural disposition. But the other thing is, she had been in my shoes. So her own mother, it wasn't dementia. She had a kind of a vascular chronic condition. Mm-hmm. She was in the hospital at one point for 9 months without leaving. And she lost her left leg bit by bit. They kept doing surgery saying, we're going to try to save more and save more. So Simone, every day after work, would go to the hospital until the end of visiting hours, 10 o'clock. So I think she had already been broken in to what it meant, to what a disruption it was to your life to be a caregiver. So I think that experience primed her for it, in addition to, like I say, just being, just a very compassionate, giving person who is willing to have mom live with us for a while. So all power to her. Yeah.
How about your career? Because you do have a very successful career.
Yeah.
Like movies I've watched and seen and love. So
Yes.
what are you working? Like how do you make that happen when your mom's getting not in an Uber? Like, when she's getting in somebody else's car, you're having to go.
Mostly that, cut. And you're like,
Sure.
hold on just a sec. Be right back. No, go ahead.
Yeah, it did. I had to kind of, again, sort of pivot and figure stuff out. So as an example, so we'll talk about the screenwriting maybe in a second, but so the bar ownership at the time, I now own one bar. I own two at the time. So, and mom at that point was living up here with me, and she just didn't want to be in the house too much alone. So when I had my, a couple of times a week, I would have meetings with my managers and my other co-owners. So I was like, wait a minute, just bring mom along. It'll be great. So I brought mom along to these dark dive bars, and of course I'm cringing because she's this super clean, like you could eat off her kitchen floor, and the bathrooms in my places are unspeakable. I wouldn't go in there. I barely use my name. And I certainly wouldn't wear any kind of open-toed shoe in my own place. So she would come and bring a book. She likes she's kind of these coffee table books of little sayings, I think, because they're little, small, digestible. So she would bring that. And that really worked for quite a while. But there was times where if the meeting went more than 2 hours or so, she would start sort of pacing, and she would be walking behind us, and I could tell like mom's ready to go. But that was my first attempt to kind of keep my life going and just integrate her into it. And it helped for a while. As for screenwriting, the good news with screenwriting is you are on your own schedule. So you hustle, you run down. In my case, you go down to LA, you take maybe a week of meetings, frantic meetings, and you're pitching something, or maybe someone's pitching an idea to you, and then you come back with your ideas. But the bottom line is, once you get the job, you get to disappear for 6, 8, 10 weeks to go to write the thing. Mm-hmm. And the good thing there is then I'm making it my own schedule. So I do my thing, and this is now to this day. So now, for example, I am working on something, but I know where my mom is, and whenever I visit her, absolutely critical is when I leave, I put a little note on the kitchen counter saying, Chato, that's my nickname in the family, Chato will be back, and I write down the date. And then she doesn't have to worry anymore. She's not like, well, when is he coming back? And I that note to me, that simple thing was one of the biggest breakthroughs I had about not having her feel worried or anxious, trying to remember when I'm going to come. Because I'm like, well, I could put it on the calendar, but the calendar is now a little bit too confusing. But this one little note, which only has one date on it, that works. So now I'll go and I'll see her, and I'm able to balance. Luckily, because the screenwriting gives me the flexibility, and that's how that worked.
Okay, we're gonna take. I can't believe it's already our second break. No, hurry. This is really good. Okay, we'll be right back. Okay. About you, but my inbox is always cluttered with useless emails. But there's one I always open, the Confessions of a Reluctant Caregiver newsletter. You may say, Natalie, what makes yours so special? Well, I'm biased, but don't just take my word for it. Here's what our subscribers say they love. First, it comes once per month, and you can read it in under 5 minutes. Next, you'll find amazing tips and resources to use in your everyday life. And who doesn't love a recommendation? These sisters do, which is why we share sister-approved products and discount links to save you time and money. And of course, you're first to know about the upcoming month's confessions. Just like our show, you're guaranteed to relate, be inspired, leave with helpful tips and resources, and of course, laugh. Go to our website, confessionsofareluctantcaregiver.com, to sign up for our newsletter today.
If you like Confessions, we have another podcast we'd love to recommend, the Happy Healthy Caregiver podcast with Elizabeth Miller. As a fellow Whole Care Network podcaster, we love how Elizabeth chats it up with family caregivers and dives into their caregiving and self-care strategies. Just like us, Elizabeth believes that family caregivers are the experts in caregiving. Beyond the informative conversations, Elizabeth reveals the tried and true resources and practical self-care self-care tips that empower caregivers to prioritize their health and happiness. You can find the Happy Healthy Caregiver podcast wherever you download your favorite podcast or go to the website at happyhealthycaregiver.com.
All right, everybody, we are back here with Alfredo Botello. All right, next question. So I just want to get right on into reluctant caregiving.
Yeah.
The spin cycle. So because listeners are everybody is always afraid to talk about the really hard. So I want to talk about some of those moments when you said, this is hard and I'm frustrated. Like, what prompted you to write the book? Because you said, I should have written this 6 years ago. Like, what are the moments that you say in the book? What are those things that you share what is your reasoning for reluctant caregiver?
I looked around after realizing what was going on with mom, and I could see that there were kind of practical, almost bullet point, how to be a better caregiver books.
Mm-hmm.
And there were maybe a few memoirs, mostly penned by women, and that's all great.
Yeah.
But what I was missing was the emotional comfort of knowing I wasn't alone. I couldn't find that anywhere. That really drove me nuts. And I chose to do a fictional version rather than a memoir, because with a memoir, maybe I could explore my own personal experience and get into it. But with fiction, this is what I do for a living, I could invent 9 other characters, which is a quick note on the book. It's spin cycle, notes from a reluctant caregiver. In a nutshell, high school math teacher Ezra Pavich, end of his rope, dealing with mom, in desperation, opens up a quote unquote school, adults patiently parenting adults, and 9 people show up to this sort of ridiculous mini mall storefront. It's more a support group than an academy, but he wants to think of it in exalted terms. But it's a place where desperate people can share their problems. And just hearing, so for me, when I'm reading something, or it could be anything, whatever your thing is, it could be, I don't know, a painting or a piece of music, something where you feel that someone is being vulnerable and raw about their feelings and not sugarcoating, I immediately feel empathetic. I feel connected. And I feel comforted. So, tell me about the bad feelings. I remember, this is an example that I sort of morphed into a story in the book, but this is a real life example where mom and I and a friend were going to dinner, and it was like a Marie Callender's type place, a place that she had been to and liked. We go there. It was kind of busy Sunday afternoon, I think, kind of a loudish crowd. And suddenly, I'd never seen it before. She was reaching up and covering her ears and kind of crunching her eyes, and I could just see she was overwhelmed by all the noise. And I hadn't seen that before. And I was like, what are you doing? This is so weird. So my first thought was, well, let's go to a quieter table. So I shifted us to a quieter table, and then she still was very distressed. And I remember and her friend was kind of looking around, like pretending like, oh, nothing, everything's fine. And I was looking at the other patrons, and they were kind of glancing over. I'm like, what are they thinking? So at the time I was feeling judged. I was irritated with my mom. Like, what are you doing? It's not that noisy. What's the problem? And then on the way home, I remember, like, when we were finally just me and her alone, just in a moment, I said, if you do that again, I'll never take you out to dinner. And she was crushed, and I wanted her to be crushed. I was angry. I was pissed that she had embarrassed me. So it was about my shame, my embarrassment. For all I know, the other patrons didn't care. They probably didn't even notice, but this is my issue. And the thing about it is she might forget the words tomorrow, but she will not forget the problem is she won't forget the emotion. She won't forget the emotion. So then I was trying, how we sometimes say sorry without saying sorry. So a couple of days later, I was like, hey, let me take you out for a meal. And she said, last time you were really pissed. And I was just brokenhearted, because that means it stuck. Like, I had a bad moment. I even as I said the words, I knew it was wrong to do it. But that's the kind of stuff I want to talk about in the book, because I think we do those things sometimes. That's human. That's real. And I've got, there's 9 characters in the book. So there's 9 times, however many anecdotes and experiences they share of stuff just like that, where you're not your best self. And it takes time, I think, to develop this ability to go. So maybe on a lighter note, but also something that happened. So my mom would sometimes call me Joe, and Joe's her brother who died about 30 years ago. Now, in the beginning, I would correct her. No, Joe is dead. I am not Joe. So I won the argument, right? Sort of. No, yes. I got the facts right, but it didn't matter because she would just look a little bit confused and alarmed, and it was a battle not worth winning. And I finally realized what is the harm in me saying, oh, let me check on that. Let me see when he's coming. Or, oh, that's great. I'm glad, Joe, you know what? I think he is visiting. You're right. Don't correct her, because there's nothing to come of it. The more important thing is to have a response that I think just kind of keeps the situation from escalating. And then, eventually I'm going to pivot anyway, and we're going to go get our favorite coffee, and it's going to be okay. But I'm not telling you this, by the way, as some guru sitting on a mountaintop who knows better. This is like trial and error, and me doing a lot of what I think are embarrassing, awful things until I barely get there. So this is kind of aspirational, more than realized. So these are the kind of moments I wanted to talk about in the book. And I got to obviously invent some that I've just heard about, or that I just feel are believable, that hopefully the bottom line is, if anybody picks up the book and is like, oh, I'm not alone, I'm not the worst person out there, then I've done my job.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. I'm not alone.
Yeah, I'm not alone.
I think that's interesting. I think it's funny and respectful. I'm going to just, be authentic about it and just be honest about it. I didn't realize it was fiction. And yet I don't think it's fiction. I think it is your truth inside of characters, and it feels a little protective. And so, but then you offer a lot of, based on what you've heard and other people's experiences, you enriched it. You brought many different perspectives to caregiving, from the perspective of each individual character and then how they interacted. I think that's super interesting, as opposed to just, this was my experience. This is, and so I really like that.
It's a voice for a lot of people.
It is. And that's the part that I really like.
I do like that.
Because it is hard to, here's the thing. There's so much shame, because I can totally relate. I told my husband I hated him on day 6. He had cancer. I always say, like, who tells a person who has cancer that they hate them? And, or who argues with a cancer patient? I did. Right. Not my best moment. Not even remotely my best moment. And yet I felt so pushed about things. But you're right about, like, I didn't even put on Facebook that Jason had cancer, because I was more concerned, honestly, about how people would look at me. I didn't want people to look at me different. I didn't want that. And Jason's he was super private, so he didn't want that. But part of me, if I look back and I'm really honest with myself, I didn't want that more than he didn't want it. And so that's the part that is the reluctance of our title for the podcast is, I'll tell people now, I was like, I'm a crappy caregiver. I get frustrated. I'm impatient. I'm like, let's just do it. Let's just get it done. I'm like, why are we arguing about this? Just go do it. And so I'm going to tell you, like, your comments resonate with me so personally. The snippiness, the impatience, and I don't care how much I know, I still do it every now and then. And I still have to get better. And it's okay. And sometimes you might get crappy with the person that you're helping. And then you're like, oh, well, crap, I did that again. Like, it's the truth.
So where are you at right now? You said you're going to see your mom. Where's your mom right now? How are you guys? How you doing now?
She's right now. It's a really good period, and I'm not going to count on it to last forever, but things are really good right now. So the place she's staying, it's great. They basically, she's happy because it's very social, and they just keep her very engaged. So she loves the activities coordinator, a lovely young woman named Mariah. So they do things like, sure, my mom does love, she's very hard of hearing, so some things she can't participate fully in, but she loves bingo, balloon badminton. So you get to, that's exactly what it sounds like. You're there with a balloon, a long balloon, and you get to bat around another balloon. Like, I want to do that. Yeah. And I could have wanted to. I mean, they have happy hour on Fridays where these two guys come in and play live music, Beach Boys, Elvis, the stuff that the residents there would relate to. I've seen them happen where this person, Mariah, I've gone in, and my mom is still in many ways a girly girl. Like, she grew up in the 60s. So for her, Jackie O is like the icons. And she would tell me stories of when we went to the movies, then you wore white gloves. It was an event.
Exactly.
And getting on an airplane, same thing. You dressed up.
You dressed up.
So she likes to have her nails done, right? And her toenails done and hair and everything's got to be kind of just so. I go in there once and I see Mariah painting my mom's nails. And there's 3 other women there also waiting their turn. Anyway, they just made me think that, I guess, I mean, obviously you guys don't know Mariah, but to me, it's like, if there is a heaven, she's first in line for sure. She's going right on. Like, she's chosen, I'm guessing she's late 20s, early 30s tops. Like, she's chosen this as a vocation. So of course it makes me feel super grateful. And then all the crappier about it.
Yeah. Like, I'm not painting my mom's nails. I suck.
Yeah, exactly. So you put this, this is a little anecdote I should share with you guys. I wanted to take a trip, like a 2-week trip. But I had to leave my mom, and I was so nervous. Like, what's it going to be for her if I'm not there every 2 or 3 days, like on my schedule? So in desperation, I went on Craigslist and put out an ad saying, "Hi, I need someone for 2 weeks who can show up a couple days, take my mom to Starbucks, sit with her, do her word puzzles." And I got an avalanche of replies. Now, most of them were not, I can do it. Some were, and I did hire somebody, but a lot of people were just like, "Oh, this is the most touching Craigslist ad I ever did." And I thought, "Oh, this is probably the best thing, like the nicest thing I've ever done." And my mom's not going to even be aware of it. It's a Craigslist ad, but it came out of desperation because I didn't want to have to worry about her.
Mm-hmm.
But the point is, I found this woman, Sharon. She was great. And I went in there when it was time to kind of pick mom up after my trip. And I go in there and she's got mom's pant legs rolled up to the knee. And she's massaging my mom's calves and feet. And I'm just like, and again, I think I have never done that for mom. Now, why is that? I think there's like weird family things. I don't even know why I can't just be nice like that. But that is so incredible. Again, it sort of makes me feel, it just reminded me of how bad of a caregiver I am. But on the other hand, this is part of the dynamic too, which is like they have the grandparent experience. You get to go in for half an hour, you get the best parts, and you can leave before it gets difficult. She doesn't have to watch the meds. She doesn't have to tell mom, don't go wandering in the rooms. Don't ask about your meds. Don't. She doesn't have to be the bad cop. So I try to let myself off the hook a little bit and be better in my ways. But it was just an amazing moment to see this.
So I will tell you, and I know we got to get over to sister questions. Here's your funny, is that we always say we have a special heart for single person caregivers, that you're alone. It takes 3 of us. And what you just mentioned, Sharon, the lady, so that's what our youngest sister, Emily, does. So she has that heart. Don't know, mom, you can't do this. No, you can't do this. And then Natalie is the Kraken. Like, when something has to come down with the insurance company, it takes 3 of us to do the job that you do.
Out of 3 daughters, I'm my mom's 4th favorite.
Yeah. So
I am exactly like her.
So, but we want, any caregiver to realize, and you to realize, that it takes 3 of us. So anything that you feel like, I didn't get to that's okay.
You're doing such a great job.
Yeah.
I mean, here's the thing. I hear the love for your mother in your voice. The fact that you worried and said, I'm going to be gone for 2 weeks and I don't want her to be distressed because because I go see her every 2 to 3 days. That is the kindest thing that you can do. That is being intentional and knowing your mom. And it doesn't matter if Sharon did it, because the reality is it's great. She got it done. Her need was met and you did great. And that's what we tell any listener who's here, sometimes it's coordinating the care. And not everybody, and this is, I'm not talking about you, Alfredo, not everybody's meant to be a caregiver. I am not the greatest. So I also know who to surround myself by. And whenever I need, I'm like a little bit softer, because my younger sister has to remind me to be sometimes nice to my husband. She's like, Natalie, he loves to be loved on. He wants to be babied a little. And I'm like, all right, I'll try to find the patience for that. You sure you don't want to give him a call? And so I always say that JJ was the sister that he should have married. And so the reality. But okay, so we're going to jump to sister questions. Right. I don't even believe that we're already done with our time almost.
I know.
It's really bad. So
I always get to make a statement first.
Do it.
Okay, so here's my statement, Alfredo. So you said something about when you say things when you're not your best self. So first of all, this is my confession. So, because I think this is important, and I think it's hard for caregivers. So here it is. And I hope that everybody that's listening, because you're afraid to share these things. So when you talked about your mom, I'm not going to cry. I always cry. When you talked about your mom in the restaurant, holding her hands over her ears, we are very hesitant about sharing a lot of stuff about our mom. But my angry moment is mom spills a lot of food on herself. And so we get ice cream, which is her favorite. You're talking about going out. And when she spills ice cream, I get really angry. And I'm not angry, but I'm like so frustrated because I just don't understand. Like, Mom, you can hold that. You know, my mom has Parkinson's. But I'm like,
shaky.
I'm like, Mom, you know, you just hold the spoon, you know, or put the napkin. And it's not that I'm not mad at her or anything, but I think, you know, it's just me frustrated because I want to keep her clothes clean and I want to make sure she looks nice. But I think to any caregiver out there, that's okay. You're just tired and you're doing laundry and you're doing all that. And those things are okay. So thank you for saying it's okay for me to have those days when I'm not my best self. So thank you, Alfredo. But here is my question, because I thank you for allowing me to have that realization moment. A recommendation that you would give for somebody when you're not in your best moment. Like, what were you able to do when you got that snippiness? Are you still learning? Did you learn? Like, what do you do when you're at that moment? Like, stop, Mom, or that snippy moment?
The umbrella answer to that question is entering their reality as much as I can. And that's not easy to sort of try to be in the lens of that person to kind of see where maybe they're coming from. So, an example, taking Mom to Starbucks. So she, in this period of her life, like some of the filters go away, like social norm niceties and so on. So she loves toddlers and babies and loves to like, just ooh and ah over them. So we go there. And invariably, when a young mom comes in with her kid, my mom pops up on her walker, you know, scoots herself over, gets right in their face, and is just like waving at the baby and saying hi. And that's all fine. But normally, you know, I think the unwritten social rule is you make the compliment and then you go about your business and then they go get their coffee. But at this stage, if my mom wants to stay for 10, 15, 20, 30 seconds longer, which is an eternity to go to a stranger and fuss over their kid, the most amazing thing happens is that, so for on my side, I don't try to pull her away anymore. I don't try to say, okay, Mom, let's go back to I let it roll, because what I've seen is that to a person, people intuit something's going on. They just do. And this is a moment where I have faith in humanity again, because they just get it and they don't mind. And they're happy to have the baby. And sometimes they'll lift the baby's hand and have the baby wave back at Mom. And it just tickles my mom to no end. And I just realized, so my old self would be like, let's not embarrass ourselves. Let's not overstay the welcome. But now I let it go. And so letting that go is entering her reality, which is, this is amazing. And just real quick on a side but super related note. So when I wanted to stay connected with my older son in high school, he played football. I didn't play football. I was like a theater guy who kind of made fun of jocks. That was kind of my thing.
Yeah. So it seems appropriate.
So yeah, karma, right? So it's all good karma. Anyways, so yes, we still had sushi and old heavy metal music in common, but I wanted as many points of connection. So when he got into football, suddenly I found myself volunteering to work at the snack shack. And then I got promoted to the chain gang. I didn't even know what a chain gang was, if it had to do with prison in the 30s, but apparently, like, you get to move the chains every few yards for a new down. But I got to be up close. So basically, I was entering his reality. Yeah. So I wanted to stay connected. So to this day, he loves the Oakland Raiders. So I don't even know why. I hate the Denver Broncos. I just don't know why. I just know I'm supposed to.
I love that.
Best dad. You're like,
yeah.
I mean, I hate them. Right? So, but the point is, I realized, oh, wait a minute, this is no different. I want to stay connected to Mom. So why not do if she wants to spend more time with the babies, or like I'll show her on YouTube. We communicate a lot by the laptop because of the hearing. When we're out, I'll look up videos, either babies or puppies, or ideally babies playing with puppies.
Oh, even better.
Both and I'll flip it around and she'll start laughing and I can tell she likes it. So I'm now like, why can't I be like a 2-year-old or 3-year-old and enter and just enjoy the joy of puppies, because they are perfect. Dogs are perfect animals. We kind of talked about that before we went on air. Babies are perfect. They can't yet lie and do all the things that we learn later. So why not just, instead of thinking, oh, this is silly, or let's you've had enough of that, let's get back to reality, go with her reality. And I think the truth is we're gonna both be a little happier. And that's what I learned with my son, and that's what I learned with my mom.
There's no better takeaway than we're both going to be happy. You're exactly right. Yeah. Instead of worrying about what everybody else thinks, just be happy together. Spend that time, because in the end, you're never going to remember who those people were. You can't even remember their faces if you really think about it. You can't remember it, but you remember how you made your mom feel. Yeah. And that feels pretty darn good.
Yeah.
All right, here's the last question. Here's the last question. And it's always mine. What is your favorite guilty pleasure? What do you do just for yourself that you enjoy?
Ooh, boy.
I know, right?
He's really thinking.
It's a hard one. But it's gotta be a guilty pleasure. Kind of boring. I'll sort of binge watch, bad TV.
Yes.
But that's I don't think that's much of a guilt. It's okay. So that's my. If we had some more time, I'd probably come up with something better. But I do. I'll be like, I don't have to be productive. I don't have to, and it's like comfort. It's comfort food. These are things I've already seen. So like, I'm actually, as a kind of type A Virgo, the idea of wasting time is insane.
Mm-hmm.
So to binge a bad show is one thing, but to re-binge it is even worse. It's like, why am I rewatching some show? That's sort of, but that to me is like my mind being able to wind down for a few minutes. So
Natalie's is Hallmark movies, so you're fine.
Same answer. It's the same ending every time. My husband is like, Hallmark is so bad, and I'm like, zip it.
Yeah, you're fine. And we get that a lot. I can binge watch a series I've already seen. Just bring on Forrest Gump. That's all I'm saying.
I just assumed he was going to say Bridgerton. It's totally fine. I knew it. I just feel like you're a Bridgerton person, clearly. You know what, Alfredo, thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
You are such a blessing, and I appreciate you for your authenticity, for your courage. I appreciate your book. I think that is so necessary, because it's not easy. And I think we need to stop acting like it's rainbows and unicorns, and just say that it's partly sometimes rainbows and unicorns. And that's okay, because both things can be true. It can be hard and it can be amazing.
Yep.
So perfect. We thank you for being with us.
Thanks so much for having me, you guys. It's been a pleasure.
Absolutely. All right, guys, until we confess again, we'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.
Well, friends, that's a wrap on this week's confession. Thanks so much for listening in to the podcast. But before you go, please take a moment to leave us a review and tell your friends about the Confessions show. Don't forget, visit our website to sign up for our newsletter, as well as connect with us on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Pinterest, and Twitter. You'll also find the video recording of all our episodes on the Confessions website and our YouTube channel. We'll see you next Tuesday when we come together to confess again. Till then, take care of you. Okay, let's talk disclaimers. We are not medical professionals and are not providing any medical advice. If you have medical questions, we recommend that you talk with a medical professional of your choice. As always, my sisters and I at Confessions of a Reluctant Caregiver have taken care in selecting the speakers, but the opinions of our speakers are theirs alone. The views and opinions stated in this show are solely those of the contributors and not necessarily those of our distributors or hosting company. This podcast is copyrighted and no part can be reproduced without the express written consent of the Sisterhood of Care, LLC. Thank you for listening to the Confessions of a Reluctant Caregiver podcast.